Well, this is my first installment of my vlogs that I've been planning for a really long time about living with complex regional pain syndrome and what that really means. It's 1 in the morning, so this is me at 1 in the morning. But sleeping is incredibly challenging when you have this disease in so many parts of your body that getting comfortable enough to sleep for more than 20 minutes at a time, sometimes a half an hour if I'm lucky, before repositioning and trying to find a different way to be comfortable for short periods of time, never really finding comfort. So I'm up a lot during the night. So it's been on my mind, and I've been struggling with a way to present this because I originally struggled very much with the fact that CRPS, which is also called reflexive sympathetic dystrophy, so you'll often see CRPS slash RSD, and they're really not interchangeable, though they're often used interchangeably. But I'm not going to get into that because this is not a medical version. I post a lot of that kind of stuff on my wall. But I just want to talk about what it's like to live this kind of a life. And I struggled with the fact that when you first get diagnosed, and sometimes that takes years, it's a very rare disease, so getting diagnosed can be very difficult. I was very fortunate. I was diagnosed fairly frequently, or fairly. You also get brain glitches, so you think you're going to say one word, and then another word pops out, and you think, that wasn't the word. I didn't plan on saying that word. I had another word in mind completely. But now I don't remember the word that I was going to say. And I lose my train of thought quite quickly as well. Anyway, that's really frustrating for me. It bothers me a great deal. But anyway, I was diagnosed early on, and then you immediately look up your disease, which nobody should ever do. Nobody should ever Google their own diseases and read about their own diseases. That's just basic knowledge. It's just bad. But the first thing that you read in about every article is that it's called the suicide disease. And I had a really hard time with that. And so I kept thinking that I had to do a blog that was cheerful and telling people how, they might call it the suicide disease, but they shouldn't. That's a horrible thing to link to it, and how dare they put that in people's heads. And I do think because teenagers are now being more widely diagnosed for, I don't know why, because they don't know why some people get it and others don't. So that it bothers me for like teenagers, because putting that thought in a young brain who's just found out that their life will never ever be the same, because of course there's no cure. So and so I felt like that was something that I needed to find a way to be like cheerful about, and to convince people that they shouldn't say that. And in my heart of hearts, I couldn't. And so I like have held off on this vlog for probably 2 years. And not started it because it is the disease that doesn't kill you. It just makes you wish you were dead. And we have lost so many people to suicide because living in this kind of pain every minute, every second of every day with no breaks, never getting a moment's peace and a moment that is not filled with excruciating pain is exhausting and debilitating and fucking painful. It sucks. And well, I think that people should beat it, I mean, well, we're not going to beat it because there's no cure, but fight it, I think people need to look at the things in their lives that they have and fight to stay here with those things, or those people, I have my kids and my grandson and a great support system, with my friends, and the people who care for me and love me and have been there for me. But I've also lost so much, and that hurts as much as when you get this disease, and like originally it was in my right arm and it was excruciating and it ruined a lot of components of my life, but I didn't know that in 70% of the people with CRPS it spreads. I spent 4 or 5 years with no idea that it was going to spread. I know that it could spread if you had surgery, or there were things that could make it spread, but I didn't realize it could just suddenly jump from my arm down to my feet. But even with it just in my right arm, I lost my career. And that alone makes you, the depression and the loss of your identity when you lose. I have a master's degree in behavior disorder, and I have taught kids in offsite classrooms who are too volatile to be in a public room setting for 15 years prior to all of this, and I loved my job. I loved what I did, and it meant so much to me. And so to lose all of that was like losing a huge piece of myself. And if you identify so much of yourself with what you do and who you are is part of your career, that was such a huge part of who I was, and then it was just gone. And then the battle that they took to try to drive me out before they found a loophole to actually get me out, and then the work comp case, and it's just, there's no way you can not be severely depressed and end up with clinical depression when you have to deal with the kinds of things you have to deal with when you find out that you have a chronic illness with no cure that changes your whole life. And you lose friends. I have so many friends that have abandoned me for various reasons, and I can't hold that against them. My life is so different. I'm not the same person by any stretch, by any means, that I was before I got sick. And CRPS hits on the autoimmune system, the central nervous system, and the neurological components. So, I get sick a lot. Have brain glitches and brain fog all the time. And I can't drive, and I'm stuck in a wheelchair. And now they took my pain meds away from me, so I'm really struggling with that because I was finally on a really good routine and pain management plan, which doctors aren't allowed to prescribe anymore because of the CDC and government officials coming in and arresting them for prescribing to chronic pain patients who are supposed to be on palliative care for the rest of their lives. And we are treated so inhumanely. It is ridiculous. Which, by the way, I've been working on this rally for a nationwide rally for Don't Punish Pain. And it has given me a really great focus, and it has actually made me realize that when I have a focus, that really helps with my depression and my anxiety. It's way better when I have something to focus on that I'm passionate about and that means something to me. But the rally is on Tuesday from noon to 2 at Green Square Park. And so anyone who has chronic pain or works with chronic pain patients or has lost someone to suicide because of chronic pain, and especially people who are fighting to keep their meds, but even if you're not, just to be there to support those of us who have already lost them or lost someone to this fight. And if you haven't lost them, it's probably coming, because I'm in a lot of support groups online specifically for CRPS, but also for chronic intractable pain in general. And it's happening all over the UK, Australia, United States. It's just, and the CDC is, they are covering up the number of suicides, and they are blowing out of proportion the number of pharmaceutical opioid related deaths, because a lot of the deaths are related to illicit fentanyl. A lot of the opioid related deaths, overdoses, I mean. So I have a bunch of statistics on that, but of course I don't remember them now. But I know that the percentage of overdoses that are specifically related to prescription medications is very, very low compared to the overdoses of illegal drugs and illicit drugs, and especially fentanyl. Fentanyl is the real killer right now, and that's the real, that's what they need to be fixing, is that fentanyl is being brought into the United States by the bucket loads, and it's a very, very dangerous drug that is prescribed by the milligram for pain and often used in pain patches. Very, very dangerous drug, and it is the main cause for, I would say, the majority of the overdoses. And pain prescriptions, not so much. So that's very frustrating for people like me who are struggling to function in daily living or sleep or get off of the bed or the couch to do things. Anyway, I think that my main focus tonight, I just wanted to kind of talk about how much you lose and why. I do understand the reason why they do call it the suicide. It's the highest rated pain in scientific and medical history, and they use the McGill scale, which is a different pain scale, and we are ranked, CRPS slash RSD is ranked as the highest pain known on the pain scale. It's higher than childbirth without any anesthesia. It's higher than amputation of a digit without anesthesia. It's higher than a whole bunch of things. And I've posted a lot of this on my Facebook wall, but for those of you who see me on YouTube and listen to this, it is rated between 42 and 47, I believe, on the McGill scale, which goes to 50. And it is rated as the highest pain known to medical and scientific. I repeat myself a lot because of the brain fog. But it has affected, starting in my right arm, it has now spread to both my feet, both legs up to my knees, my collarbone, my neck, both shoulders, and is now moving into my left arm, though it's in the beginning stages of just my left hand and wrist, and then sometimes my elbow. I was trying some experimental ketamine infusions, but they weren't covered by insurance, and they were helping with mobility in my right arm, and then they were helping, I think they were helping to kind of stop the progression in my left arm, but they're really expensive, and so I've kind of taken a break from those because I'm seeing a doctor next week to see about getting an intrathecal pain pump, which means that I will undergo surgery to have it installed. But I've steered away from surgery this entire time because surgery can make CRPS spread, but it's already spreading everywhere, so I don't see that I've got much to lose, and the pain that I'm in all the time now is being really difficult, and it's making my quality of life much lower, and my ability to do the things that I want to do, like go to my grandson's football games and be able to actually focus and concentrate and pay attention much harder. And that's one of my favorite things to do. So I want to be able to do those things. Being able to go to the store, being able to go do normal life activities. I go and listen to live music with my friends, but it has become more difficult for me to stay for very long, and then I end up using alcohol as a painkiller, and my body doesn't tolerate alcohol very well. I'm a real lightweight. I don't have very much tolerance, and it makes me quite ill, and the recovery time is quite long. For anything that I do, the recovery time is quite long, and that means that I spend more days or weeks in bed following anything that I do, because the energy output is exhausting. And my focus and concentration for anything, because when you're in pain constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every second, it gnaws at your consciousness constantly, and so you can't fully focus on anything. I can't read even an article that someone posts on Facebook. I can't read at one time because I don't have that kind of attention span. It's broken up because of the disease. And while I have hope that someday they will find a cure, CRPS presents so differently in different people that it's hard for me to believe how they will find a cure, because in one person it might present one way, and in another person it might present differently. And the same thing with medications. Some nerve or seizure medications might work really well in one person, whereas pain medication like hydrocodone or oxycodone or morphine work really well, whereas in some people they don't tolerate those well at all. And sometimes people can take psych meds or things that, it just totally varies. It's so crazy making, because what people can take and tolerate is totally different, and then the way it presents itself is very, very different. Like the spreading in 70% of the people who get it, that's crazy. It's for no reason. Like, it just suddenly jumps to wherever it wants, usually to the same limb or across to the limb. It usually doesn't go like from one arm to the next arm. It'll go from an arm to a leg, either same or opposite. But it's a crazy disease, and some people have the burning hot fire, and other people have frostbite sensation. But all of us have the electricity inside, where the nerves are going crazy all the time and sending electrical fire throughout the affected areas. And then, like, for me on the outside, it's frostbite, like, all the time, as if I'm stuck in a pond that's iced over. If you want to try the real ice bucket challenge, go put your arm in a bucket of ice water filled with ice and hold it in there at least a minute, but as long as you possibly can, and you can feel somewhat of how I feel 24/7, because there's never a break. And then for other people, it's like their skin is on fire. And then when you get a flare, or if you have allodynia and someone touches you, or water hits you, or, which I have, my entire right arm is like this, then it feels like frostbite. And then someone takes sandpaper to your arm and rubs the sandpaper against it, and then pours salt on it, and then uses the sandpaper to rub the salt into it, or uses a razor blade and slashes you a whole bunch. Not a razor blade, because those don't hurt that way, because they're really sharp and fast. Maybe a weed whacker. Either way, it's very painful, and it's super, like, I have to wear tank tops and all winter long because I can't have anything touch this arm. The rest of my ankles are getting sensitive, but they're not nearly as bad as the right arm. But that's where my that's where my injury occurred, and that's what set off the CRPS. So if you want to Google it, it's complex regional pain syndrome, or RSD, which is reflexive sympathetic dystrophy. Although the name changes a lot. I think when I was diagnosed, it was chronic pain syndrome or something like that. They've changed the name a lot. So that's just a small window into the life of someone with complex regional pain syndrome. And if you have questions, please let me know. There's a whole lot more to it. I urge you to Google it. I know there's more I wanted to share, but I guess 1 a.m. probably wasn't the time to start my vlog. At least I recorded it and didn't do it live, although I'll probably just post it without reviewing it, because if I review it, I won't want to post it. And the whole thing about this is just to get on here and get started. And then I'm just going to talk to you about day-to-day, how it is to try to get through. It's really hard because there's so